Hey, greetings, everyone. Lieutenant Colonel Alan West, Senior Fellow at the Media Research Center. One of the reasons I'm wearing my 4th Infantry Division swag here, back from the days when I was part of the Steadfast and Loyal Division, I was a battalion commander there, was because this past weekend, down just south of Houston, Texas, in Kemah, Texas, I had the opportunity to run the Disabled American Veterans 5-kilometer race. And what was really special was that I got a chance to run with my former battle buddy from Iraq back in 2003. That's Sergeant Robert Delgado. Sergeant Robert Delgado was my driver. And he and I spent a lot of great time together, definitely in a Humvee. I mean, he was my buddy. But on one night back in the summer of 2003, we had a mission to go out to conduct a raid against a suspected Saddam Fedayeen ammunition cache. It was a place where they had just stockpiles of RPGs and weaponry and things of this nature. On our way for this operation, we were hit by an ambush, and we got into a pretty intense firefight. Sergeant Robert Delgado, just 2-3 feet away from me, was shot in the arm. It was a clean wound, entry and exit wound, but he did suffer some very severe nerve damage. He was medevac back to the United States, but the interesting thing about Sergeant Robert Delgado, he didn't just stay there in the United States. He came back and joined us in our battalion, 2nd Battalion, 20th Field Artillery Regiment, MLRS. We were nicknamed the Deep Strike Battalion. To run with Sergeant Robert Delgado in that 5-kilometer race this past Saturday was something very special for me, because there's a bond between those of us that have served this nation, willing to give the last full measure of devotion. And there's something special about our disabled American veterans that continue to stand, continue to serve, continue to do what is necessary to protect those other veterans who are less fortunate. And that's why what happened on Saturday Night Live, a skit done by a gentleman by the name of Pete Davidson, is absolutely repulsive, it's appalling, it's disgusting, it's despicable. Because what Pete Davidson did was to mock a combat wounded veteran, a United States Navy SEAL by the name of Lieutenant Commander retired Dan Crenshaw. Dan Crenshaw is a 6th-generation Texan. Dan Crenshaw served this nation and lost his right eye during a firefight. Now, for someone to take this incredible man who continued to serve and continued to be deployed, but finally had to be medically retired, and mock him and compare him to a porno movie hitman.
You may be surprised to hear he's a congressional candidate from Texas and not a hitman in a porno movie.
Well, see, understand this. This was a skit that was planned. This was a skit that was reviewed. This was a script that was written and reviewed. This was a script that was uploaded into a teleprompter. These were pictures that were placed into the screenshot. This was something that every single person there in the Saturday Night Live crew, cast, production members, and maybe even Lauren Michaels knew was going to happen. But yet they continued on to disparage a man who lost his eye in service to this great nation.
I'm sorry, I know he lost his eye in war or whatever.
Maybe it is because someone like a Dan Crenshaw, who is now running for United States Congress here in the state of Texas, is just evidence that there are things that, well, Pete Davidson can't live up to. And so he would want to attack it. When I think about going to the polls here tomorrow, are these the type of people that we want to have in control of our country? Because we know that NBC, Saturday Night Live, maybe many of the people in the audience there who are laughing at the fact that they were mocking a combat wounded veteran or left-leaning. See, there's something that is honorable about those men and women who are willing to make the last full measure of devotion. Men like my former battle buddy, Sergeant Robert Delgado. Men like Lieutenant Commander retired United States Navy SEAL Dan Crenshaw, who is going to seek to continue his service to this nation. And no, Dan Crenshaw is just not some knuckle-dragging gorilla. He is educated at Tufts University. He has a master's from Harvard, Kennedy School of Government. But for someone so, I don't know, shall we say it, lacking of character, of honor and integrity to mock someone like that? To me, that shows why the Tuesday midterm election is so important. The mentality of a group of people that would attack and disparage a combat wounded veteran, that political mentality should never be in charge of these great United States of America. And let's never forget that once upon a time we had a president and a secretary of state who also went on to run for president that abandoned Americans to die in a combat zone.
We were misled that there were supposedly protests and then something sprang out of that, an assault sprang out of that. And that was easily ascertained that that was not the fact. And the American people could have known that within days, and they didn't know that.
With all due respect, the fact is we had 4 dead Americans. Was it because of a protest, or was it because of guys out for a walk one night who decided they'd go kill some Americans? What difference at this point does it make?
And 2 former Navy SEALs by the name of Glenn Dougherty and Ty Woods lost their lives in that episode. And even still, not just the disparaging aspect of being abandoned in a combat zone, but then we have Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton even lying about it. So when you take all of these things together, this is something that should really concern each and every one of us. And remember, there was another Texan, the American sniper, Chris Kyle, U.S. Navy SEAL. There was no note, certainly not in attendance, from Barack Obama or anybody from the Obama administration at his funeral. I think what Pete Davidson did and the Saturday Night Live cast and crew and the audience did is very indicative of the difference between what we can select from tomorrow during the midterm elections. To honor our men and women, to honor our disabled American veterans, to honor all our veterans, or to use them, as Dan Crenshaw said, and their wounds as insidious punchlines for really bad jokes.